Greetings, bloggers, vloggers, followers, and potters. Dustin here from Dustin's Dynasty, here at you again with another edition of this week's vlog. Uh, if you haven't met me, my name is Dustin. I'm autistic and have other mental health challenges. I've been around this autism thing for at least 25 years, but have known in some way um, of being autistic or having autism traits for most of my life. Um, I've have a part-time job. I've had that for 15 years, and I've been living on my own for over 7 years. And this month, I'll be celebrating 5 years of living in my this current home. It's been a long road. It's been a long journey to get where we are today. Life never stops throwing curveballs at us, and we learn how to cope in our own ways, I guess. But what that leads into today's episode is, sometimes I put myself so much in a higher regard because of all the achievements that I have made in my life, all of the milestones that I have reached, even, when people didn't think it was possible, and always expecting myself to be at a caliber that is higher than what is expected sometimes. But sometimes I don't realize that some of the things that I experience are just because I'm autistic, and that it's not something that has to be shamed about, called out about, hidden, that it's okay. And I think I come from the dark ages of autism. So, like, people didn't know a lot of the things that they seen in me, that as compared to somebody who may have high support needs or maybe profoundly autistic at that time. And when I was diagnosed in 1998 under the Asperger's classification, people didn't understand what Asperger's was. They didn't know what it meant. So there was a lot to learn, and people didn't know how to in the late 90s, early 2000s, professionals or so-called professionals didn't really know how to help us with managing life challenges. Um, there was not a lot of research at the time that, or a lot of inventive tools to help us to know what really helps us, and things that just nowadays seem normal and part of the makeup of what understanding that being autistic is, and that it's okay, maybe to wear headphones in a place, or having coping tools, or that autism is widely more known than what it was, maybe years ago. And that could be because of also the prevalence has been greater since those decades ago. It's not to discount the lately diagnosed, the newly diagnosed, but in some regard, it has in a way made, people are starting to see things, but we're seeing more and more of these diagnoses come about. And I think for me, I think there's been a part that I've always known, um, and part of it was also, we really, I was born in 85, and Asperger's wasn't really brought around in 94. And it wouldn't have been for somebody who was coming into my home at the time, not knowing that I was, under that umbrella, and getting me into what was a research study, and knowing in 5 minutes what that was. But all of that aside, things that were reason I'm getting into all of this is, back then we were just expected to form in and mask our way through school or life, and knowing that we didn't know what autism was. We didn't know that it was a wide array of things. It wasn't either you were non-speaking and profound, and then you were not. And that it can be a variation of ways. And it took a long time for a lot of people to realize that, and things did evolve, but as they evolved, I don't think people understood, or at least people around my generation, my age, did had to learn how to cope with it in their own way, because we were always expected to just fall in line with what the expectations were of the world, and oftentimes I didn't even ask for accommodations because I was afraid to ask for help or afraid to ask for things that I need because of my disability. I didn't want to own my disability. I didn't want to own that I was autistic. I didn't want to own any of that. I just didn't want to, and it was hard. And, I think now I look back and I think things that we don't see that could have helped, with the advances of technology and such, we see so much more things, but we don't realize, I don't realize at least, is sometimes things happen in life and things that are harder for me are just because I'm autistic. And it's not always easy to admit that. And sometimes it has been hard for me to understand that there's sometimes a sense of shame about that for me. But, and sometimes people don't understand, well, if I'm saying I'm autistic, does that really, is it really, why is that bothering me because I'm autistic? And, you have to always be ready with a backup plan and explain things of why they are the way they are. And, it's not always easy for me. And it's not always easy to understand it. Things that I experience, are just because I'm autistic. That morning anxiety, just minimal anxiety that is treated and, cared for. But, in those moments, it's like I blow it 90% of the proportion because I don't see that it's just part of autism. And there's other things that, you don't see because, it's part of autism. And it's not saying that it's an excuse to be used for, being, saying, oh, the autism is this, the autism is that. I definitely know right from wrong. I know what is expected of me, and I've always been that way. But sometimes you do need to say, hey, it creates more of a challenge for me than what is expected. And, that's just a part of life. It's just how it's going to be. It's, a part of, how it is. And I think it's hard for me to accept things, that don't come easy. And it's hard. It's just hard, and I think, when you're living a life, you're always dancing a dance and you're always thinking, you know, you know, you get angry at the simplest things because, the anxiety or, just having, those thoughts and, you know, as echolalic thoughts or, those ruminating thoughts and you think, and you hate yourself for it. You do. You really hate yourself for it. But in the end, it's realizing it's just the autism, and it's just a part of what is life. And I think, learning to manage it and get through it the best that you can get through the things that you get really help with that. There's things, that I've learned over time that have helped me better manage it and better understand it. But it's not so much just the picking up on the social cues, which I've worked so greatly to understand in many, many ways. But there's still little things that I don't get, and that's just part of who I am. It's part of the autism. I don't get the subtle jokes. I don't understand when people are joking completely. I don't understand, everything that I don't understand everything as great as I need to. And sometimes it is frustrating. Sometimes it's frustrating when things, don't go the way that I want them to go, or it creates a great deal of anxiety or pressure. And I have to often remind myself it's because of the autism. The autism causes me to feel the way that I feel. And, it's not that it excuses it, but it teaches us as a human being to learn to work better at finding it and finding ways to help ourselves get through those challenging moments that are hard for us. I think I'm still learning at the age of 40, how do I make things better? How do I still cope with things that are challenging? How do I deal with sudden change? Or how do I deal with when things are too overwhelming? Or how do I learn how to speak up for what I need? Those things all matter in their own very way, but sometimes it takes a lot to get moving and take that initiative and do what you need to do to ensure that you get the help that you need. And it's not always easy for me to speak up about things that I need or take action on things that I need to take action on. And it's hard for me to decipher when something is always a problem or it's just being autistic and I have to learn how to cope with it in my own way. It's not something it doesn't come easy because it's not something that I always understood or always, didn't have somebody to solve it for me or find the problem to the solution to the answer. It takes time to know those things and work with those things. It's not an easy fix. It's not easy. It's not going to say, you get through this so easy and it's just going to go away. You're always going to have a part of autism in you, that is lifelong and debilitating in some ways and make things challenging for you in some ways compared to others. And over time, even though I have improved myself and have gotten better in many things, there are still things that I don't get and I still struggle with, that are very challenging. And, it's important to let those people know that you need to know, that you're struggling with those things. And you're having struggles and you need help and there is never any shame in asking for help or something that you need to make things help you. It's hard. It's hard to ask. You feel like you're at the epitome of shame. You feel like, you don't, it's not that you're good enough or anything like that. And that too has taken a long time for me to understand and comprehend that, I'm autistic, but I'm okay just the way I am. And that even though I have struggles, it's okay. And I'm going to be okay, and the world is going to be okay. So I'm going to close out this week by thanking you for listening. Be sure to subscribe, tap that notification bell, do whatever it is you need to do. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Pinterest. That handle is Dustin's Dynasty. I'm on the web. That address is www.dustinsdynastyusa.com. And lastly, I have a link tree with all my socials, all my podcasts, everything you need. And that handle is Dustin's Dynasty under Linktree. Again, I want to thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there this weekend, and we'll talk at you soon. Bye for now.